Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special edition of Press Hour. And this time, we are broadcasting live from Government Bilingual Primary School, Bastos in Yaoundé. We welcome you to this special edition, just about a week and a half to the reopening of 2024-2025 school year. Cameroon has understood the message made by one American artist, Really B. King, an American artist popularly known as B.B. King, in one of his popular declarations, who said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." And I'm telling you that Cameroon has understood this so well and has stepped up its policy of literacy in the country. And statutorily, the literacy rate in Cameroon is about 80%, and we have some officials of the Ministry of Basic Education, which is the foundation of education in the country, who think that the literacy rate gets up as high as 100 or more percent. And the explanation is that those who miss it at the basic level, they catch up when they go to adult schools, they attend seminars, and some other forms of education. That is what we're going to look at on today's edition of Press Hour, where we have a special edition on basic education. And we have invited those that matter in the program. The Secretary of State to the Minister of Basic Education, Dr. Asheri Kilo Fofo, is right here to address some of these issues that we have on the eve of the 2024-2025 reopening of the school year. I'm going to welcome her specially to this special edition. It is an honor to have you on our program today.
Thank you very much, Killian. The pleasure is always mine to share what the Minister of Basic Education is doing with the Cameroonian public.
Thank you. You're welcome. This is an exceptional honor for us. And I am accompanied here by two journalists who have their place in the international space, professional space, when you talk about journalism in Cameroon and around the world. Welcome, Comfort Musa. Comfort Musa is not only a journalist, she is the coordinator of Sisters Speak 237. You're welcome to Press Our Comfort.
Thank you, Killian. It's an honor to be here on this very special edition of a program when you're discussing a topic that is very close to my heart. So I'm glad to be here.
Yes, close to your heart. You take care of children.
Because I work with children with disabilities, and most of them are at the very base level, and so this is a topic that hits close to home.
Oh, this is good. Good to know that. Meet Tewi Lambif. Tewi Lambif is an editorialist and on CRTV. He is also the technical advisor to the Director General of CRTV. You know Tewi Lambif. He is a no-nonsense journalist by all standards. Tewi, welcome to Press Hour.
Thank you, Killian. I don't know if I'm a no-nonsense, but I just think I'm just a journalist.
Yes,
so
by your right. And we also would like to acknowledge the presence here in this special edition of the Secretary General of the Ministry of Basic Education, Mr. Oyono Adams Daniel, who is here with us. We want also to acknowledge the presence of the Inspector General of Services, Mr. Nanga Charles, and Inspector General of Pedagogy, Professor Atem Majong Justina Epouze Ndika. They are all here with us. They are sitting right behind here to make sure that they give us the moral booster, they follow what we are discussing, and we just want to tell you that you're not going to miss any second of this very special and interesting program. And first things first, press review was done for us by Yoti Kale Lesonge, a lady on that beat. Yoti?
Back-to-school preparations are gathering steam across the national territory with barely 1 week to go, and the newspapers are treating the ambience from different angles. The Guardian Post writes on the new student identification system with Minister Naluva Lyunga drumming for massive enlistment before the deadline, while the Herald Tribune mentions the Anti-Corruption Commission's corruption-free school year. Cameroon Tribune points out the fact that the new textbooks are still rare, and the Horizon cues in with an assurance from the National Book Council. An article on the Lone Bilingual Daily streamlines the flip side of clandestine schools sprouting up ahead of the start of the 2024-2025 school year. Meantime, Cameroon bishops are warning school propagandists, affirming that schools must function on the Post newspaper. Before some print media organs proceed to uncover army pension fraud, costing the state 3.1 billion CFA francs annually, as seen on the Horizon. The paper indicates that over 12,000 birth certificates are being used to embezzle funds, and the Guardian Post concurs that the fake birth certificates used to receive children allowances are linked to security officers. In the same vein, Echo Outlook informs readers that it is thanks to an investigation authorized by the Ministry of Finance that the child benefit and pension fraud in the military and police corps have been uncovered. Breaking news is keen on the conflict zone, reporting that after Bamenda, 3 more police officers have been shot dead in Boya, and the Post confirms. The Herald Tribune adds flesh to the story. The management of catastrophes equally went under the spyglass this week. Cameroon Tribune highlights the need to reinforce prevention, just as municipal updates captures floods in the far north region that have forced thousands to flee after the harsh dry season, whilst progress made on the Bamenda-Babaju Road is lauded on the Horizon. This week as well, Prime Minister Joseph John Gute launched the Mercy Azombi Heart Foundation, a piece of information treated in detail on the Reporter and other publications. In the face of the monkeypox virus, Cameroon Insider reminds the population that the Mpox threat is real, underlining that Cameroon has joined the African coalition in Brazzaville. The sports column also gave readers much to digest, especially regarding the Cameroon versus Namibia AFCON qualifiers match. The Median presents a dilemma, indicating that while the country's football governing body FECAFOOT says Gara, the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education says Yaoundé, a story that triggers the question of who has the final say.
Thank you, Yoti, for that press review. We're going to, as usual, ask one of our journalists on the set to choose one topic that came up on that press review. So we warm ourselves up with, get acquainted with that topic, and I'm going to call on Comfort Musa. Which topic?
So this week, a story that is very highly reported, both print and audiovisual, is the story of clandestine schools. And of course, it's timely because we are a week away from the reopening of the schools, but I will not dwell on that because that's the obvious reporting that you get in mainstream media. There's also questions as children prepare to go back to school. There are media organs that are specialized in development news that are asking what is new for children with disability, the children that are in the last mile populations at risk of being left behind. And the newspapers that reported about this asked the question, but they could not find the answers. So maybe on the program today we may have some answers for these children who risk being left behind as others go to school this academic year.
Did we word on that?
Well, I think she's made a point. It's true that education and back to school is being very topical in our news these days. And what is of interest to me is the perennial problem of the state of unpreparedness of parents and I dare say other schools, because it's like a routine. Every year there is the usual problems of not having enough means, not having enough financial resources to take care of the student needs. But it's as if the school year, we know that it is starting just when we are a week or so before it.
Thank you. And we're going to call on our special guest, the Secretary of State to the Minister of Basic Education, Dr. Asheri Kilo. For phone, the topic they have chosen for us to take as the teaser on this program falls within discussion. Today, you happen to, as a ministry, close down so many schools this time.
Correct.
Tell us why that happened. Briefly, I know we're going to go deeper into that discussion in the course of the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Killian. I would like to say that it has been a practice, and especially seriously so in the last 5 years, when Minister Professor Etundingwa took over the helm of the Ministry of Basic Education. Cameroonians are quite indisciplined when they choose to be. There are strict regulations as to how to get a school authorized and how to get a school created. All of them know about this, but they still try to play games and involve our children in circumstances that we would not permit children to study in. We will not permit children to study in a house that was built to harbor a family. We cannot expect people to put pupils in a classroom where there is no air, where there are no classroom blackboards, where you can listen to the other child or the other teacher talking in the next room, where the square meter that was given by the ministry has not been respected, and what is worse, where there is no playground. We all know that the first measure of a child's learning is through play. And so we insist that every school must have a playground. Therefore, for different categories of schools, we give them different dimension of square meters or surface area that they should get to build a school. We also say that for certain categories of schools, a school should not rise over 4 floors, because it is dangerous for these children. And even when we happen to have a school that is 3 floors, we make sure that the older children are on the top floor. Children in class 5 and 6, and then the class 1 and 2 are on the ground floor. And we also make sure that there is a lot of protective measures, barriers for the children not to fall over. Some of the schools operate without authorization, and we cannot allow that, because that just creates chaos in the educational map of our country. So we insist on closing them down, and we give them enough notice to close down so that these children can be reoriented to other schools that are around. It is true that, especially in the private education sector, schools have become a business. But even when you do business, there are rules and regulations that you follow. That is why we have insisted on closing down those schools. We put a list up well in advance, so those who are involved know that they have to move the children to other schools, and the children will still have the opportunity to go to school, because it is the right of every child to be at school.
Thank you very much. You did it at the right time to give, as you say, children, their parents, to change the school, to know that these are clandestine schools, these are illegal schools, that children should not start a school year in the middle of that school year. They find themselves wanting. Right. But now we're going to continue on that topic since we have started. Right. Just to remind our viewers that this is a special edition of Press Hour, and we are broadcasting live from government bilingual primary school, Bastos in Yaoundé. Now, on that same topic, how many schools, we are told that the number that was closed this year is double the number that was closed last year.
And it will be double next year, so long as they don't stick to the rules and regulations. Let me tell you something. I'll give you a simple example. The state insists that for you to be given an authorization to run a private school, the land on which you want to run the school must be in your name. Or if it is not in your name, we should have a decision that is notarized, handing over the land to you. In this case, a family squabble will not come in and shut down a school at the middle of the year. We have had those problems so many times. There are problems between couples. A husband will come and say, oh, this school, yes, we put money together, but I'm divorced to this woman, so I want the woman to put her hands off. And the woman would say, no, I cannot, because the authorization is in my name in the first place. And we would honor the person in whose name the authorization is, and will ask you to go and solve your marital problems in court.
Can we talk about numbers? How many were closed last year, about how many, and how many this year?
I would think that we closed over 90 schools last year. And this year, we might be closing over 100 schools throughout the national territory. But when we put the list out, I beg to insist that if any proprietor can catch up before the beginning of the school year, you would be given the clearance to run the school.
Is it not getting too late for you? You are talking about when you put the list up?
The list is up and my staff is already in the field working.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, that is even sometimes where we have problems. We are going to talk about corruption, but we are still talking about closing these schools.
Yes.
When you close these schools, you closed last year, you come and close the same schools this year, means that they did not obey the shutting down regulation of last year.
Yes.
That gives room for people, yes, I must call because they are involved, right, the divisional officers, senior divisional officers, inspectors under your ministry, correct, to get involved in corruption. What are you doing to make sure that you don't close schools and open up valves of corruption?
I will tell you about a specific example that I handled yesterday without calling the name of the school. This school was meant to be shut down last year because the year before, the school was operating in a plank structure that had no roof that I would call a roof, that was not floored in the way a classroom had to be floored. And the size of the infrastructure did not meet the number of kids that ought to be in that school. The way the school was built is not the kind of thing that any parent, I don't know how parents send children to school without even seeing the school that these kids go to. So we asked for that school to be closed, but I got wind of the fact that the school was not closed. I called the director of private education, we talked about it. She went to Douala, met with the delegate, met with the proprietress, and told her that that school had to be shut down. You know what she did?
Tell us.
She shut it down in the one spot and moved it to another. You know what a calabote building is? Mm-hmm. These plank temporary structures. And moved it to another area clandestinely and still was running it. Somebody reported to me that she had put up notice and she had started registering children in this new clandestine spot. I called the delegate and I told the delegate that I want to get a report on Friday with pictures of seals that he has already gone and put. Yes, indeed, there are a lot of people involved in this. It is a chain. The DOs are involved, our inspectors are involved, but nobody is spared. You introduced here the Inspector General for Services. That is his job. And after I do this, and I get the report from the delegate, I'm going to make my own written report to the Inspector General for Services, and he'll investigate some more, and certainly that woman's authorization, which she never even had, because we hear it's a clandestine school, will never be given to her. Secondly, the position of the school. We have rules. No school should be closer than 1,000 meters from the other, because the population that warrants the creation of the school should be high enough to authorize the permit to open a school. And since this is a business, whether we like it or not, if two schools are 200 meters from each other, it doesn't make any sense. Therefore, we check that too, and those are some of the things that we are looking out for to close down the schools.
Thank you for that follow-up. That reassures us, and I know it also reassures our viewers and the Cameroonian public. This is a special edition. I'm going to ask Tewi Lambif and Comfort Musa, beginning with Tewi Lambif, to come up with contributions and possibly ask you some questions. As we say, this is a special edition of Press Hour.
Yes, thank you, Kilian. I understand, as the Minister says, it's Secretary of State says, it's a very complicated issue. And I was wondering, instead of closing the schools, is it not possible to put in place a constant, a permanent follow-up mechanism that will monitor the situation and make sure that those schools do not open their doors in the first place before coming to close them? Because like they say, prevention is better than cure. Is there nothing the Ministry of Basic Education can do to stop those schools from opening their doors in the first place before coming to close them, authorized or not?
Yes, you heard Kilian talk about corruption. It is not the ministry that is corrupt. It is individuals that work with the ministry who are corrupt. We do decisions here at the level of the ministry and send out that this school should not operate because we have referred to their file and they never got an authorization in the first place. The school owners themselves are frauds because they go into the quarters and they print out fraudulent documents with the signature of the minister carrying an authorization. And when our inspectors go, and these signatures are so close, honestly, if you're not a technician, you would not know that these are fraudulent documents. If you present that to the delegate, you present that to the DO, most of the time, when the information gets back to the delegate, he is one of the few who realizes that this document is not the signature of the minister. You'll get a document that was signed by Minister Etundingwa in 1992. Yeah. That is how stupid the people who fraud are. Minister Etundingwa came to the ministry in 2019. How did he sign a document in 1988, 1996, When we see something like that, we really just say this school has to be closed. People will come, parents in particular, oh, what do you want the children to do? But quite frankly, if we do not get drastic, I started by saying that Cameroonians are getting so indisciplined that you have to put your foot down to make sure that we get people to be orderly. The children would not suffer. There are lots and lots of schools everywhere that have valid authorization. And what is wrong with putting the children in our government schools?
Is it possible? Is it possible to make our education, our schools, to stop them from being businesses? Is it possible at the policy level to make sure that the schools, as a public service utility, should not be business? Because it, as you rightly said yourself, it's becoming a business.
You see, it is a problem. First of all, when somebody applies to open a school, that is their right to be able to open a school if they follow all what we ask them to do. Because there is a constant need. It will be difficult to have enough schools to have the number of children that we have needing schools. Therefore, we encourage even the private partners to be able to open schools, even lay private to open schools, the Christian, the denominational schools, to open more schools. But the thing is that you should stay within the dictates of the ministry. Now, one of the things that we check is also the amount of school fees that they charge. It is exorbitant.
That's a very important question, and some of our viewers are asking whether you are doing something to check, to control such exorbitant school fees, especially from private schools.
We do try to moderate the school fees. Those who run the schools also would tell us how much they pay the teachers, which you realize is not encouraging. And that is why all those teachers who teach in these private schools and who are not enrolled in the public service payroll want to come back and be civil servants. When we launched the exams to enroll teachers, we have 55,000 candidates for 3,000 places. And all these candidates are coming from these private schools who say that they are not well paid. And of course, government pays better. However, to come back directly to the question, when we try to harmonize the school fees, they will tell you, oh, you see, our school is special. This is what we've brought from America or Europe to train the children. The teaching aids are different. The children are in a higher class and all of that. We let go, but we also know that if you are good enough to have this amount of money to run that kind of school, you are not good enough to seek subventions every year.
Thank you very much. And I'm going, yes, coming.
Like
let me ask Tewi this question. What do you have in mind when you ask the Minister, Secretary of State, whether schools must be business oriented? How will they survive if it's not business? We want you, could be a contribution that will help to move this forward. Should it be business with the human face, or what are you actually talking about? What do you have in mind so that we can learn from that?
Well, there are people who run institutions and businesses not for profit. They just do it for example, this is Comfort here, who is doing something in that direction. I don't know if she can say that she makes some profit from it. She makes some money from it. It is actually people with established moral reputations, and I think that is possible.
Not only moral, but financial too.
Yes,
because
yes.
How will you survive?
Let us lay emphasis on the moral first, because that should be what the Ministry of Basic Education should be doing. It's not because I have money that I say I can open a school that I'm given the authorization to open. I think there should be some investigation into the morality of the person. People should be able to say that there are many things that people do for philanthropic reasons, for non-profit reasons, and those people exist. But why is it that just because somebody has money, he has building, he has peace, and he has everything it takes, and they say open the school? Why don't we ask the question, who are you? What were you doing before? What is your interest in doing this? Can you state that you are not going to make? Do you have another source of income? Is this just a hobby? Is this just an activity you're doing a service to your community?
Yeah.
Yes, so those are the questions they ask. But
how many of those people are we going to have in our society? They know that Cameroon. No, we are looking at this from a very realistic point of view. We are living in a country classified as a country with more poor people than rich people. So how are we going to sustain that, given the number of children that we have?
Let me even help you answer the question.
Okay.
There are government schools with well-trained teachers who go through continuous training, quality good. Now, if parents decide that they want to take their children and put in a school where they will be asked to pay 150,000 francs for children to be taught by teachers who are not as good and who are not as willing to teach because of the pay package. If they pay a teacher 40,000 francs a month living in Yaoundé, tell me what commitment that teacher would have in these private schools. The onus is on the population to decide what you want to do. Of course, we moderate in the sense that you cannot be given the authorization to open a school if A, you do not have the educational background. You have to be in education. What people do is that they'll tell you, I have a first degree in this, and with a first degree, you have the mindset to be able to manage a school. We let you because we know that our children are in need of schools. It is up to the parent to decide where they want to take the child to. But when we find out that even these proprietors of these schools are not following the regulations of the ministry, most of the schools we are closing are private schools.
Okay.
Yes, they are not government schools, because government schools are on, and we are stricter with our teachers than those who are.
Thank you.
Is there a criteria that lays emphasis on the moral background.
You cannot start
of
checking people's moral. Do we
for
say
example,
bring a non-conviction?
Yeah, exactly.
You'll have a non-conviction, but what does that say? You are a Cameroonian.
Or for example, somebody who, this is very sensitive. It is like joking with the lives, and they say the future of a country. When you allow anybody who wants to open a school, it's like allowing anybody who wants to open the health center.
No, I told you, it's not like anybody who wants.
The responsibility of the government.
It is, yes.
To make sure
yes.
that those who actually open schools, they should lay emphasis on their interests, on who they are, where they are, what they come from, what is their objective.
Most of these people are retired teachers, I would tell you, with no criminal background whatsoever. Retired teachers who have done their duty, services with the government, some retired delegates, some retired headmistresses and headmasters. And of course, we think that those are the best people to be able to run these schools.
Yes,
but because it is business, sir,
Yes.
they go out there and they charge what they want to charge, and it is your choice.
Thank you very much. We're going to bring in Comfort Musa to contribute to this particular topic, and then we'll move on to another issue that we have today. Yes.
Yeah, my interest is interrogating the numbers of the schools that are being shut down. When I hear 100 schools, my mind, I'm thinking, where are these schools found? Because they're shut down on basis of the lack of adequate infrastructure, the buildings are not enough, but
they didn't have authorization.
For the most part, I work in parts of Cameroon where you see children studying under trees. I have been to classrooms in this country where you have 100 kids sitting on the floor. Public schools, private schools, you have kids and you have the whole school in one room. So class 1, class 2, and there are teachers, 3 teachers in one room teaching 3 classes.
Correct.
So are these schools also shut down? Because I'm wondering, we're shutting down in towns, but in the villages, we may not even have structures to shut down because they don't exist.
Okay, let me go straight to that. Most of the schools that we shut down are clandestine schools. Granted, you see on TV all the time and people tell you there are schools under the trees. I insist that Cameroonians are very indisciplined. We have our colleagues and friends who are politicians. When they want to become mayors or whatever politically, they come and they clamor for a school that, and they show you proof that my community has more than 20,000 young people, for instance, and there is no school. They trek 5 kilometers to go to school. Mr. Minister, please, we need to create a school there, and we are ready. We know that it wasn't in your government plan, it wasn't in your budget, but we as politicians and elites, we are ready to build the school as soon as you give us the authorization. With the statistics of the number of children willing in these remote areas, as you say, the minister will say, okay, on condition that you can build, because that is not in our program at this time. Politicians take it, they go away, they've become mayors, they've become section presidents or whatever it is, and that is not done. Somebody takes the authorization now and meets the delegate and say, listen, we will start somewhere. For the parts that you see children under the trees, sometimes it's just the weather condition. Those places get so hot. I'm not saying that that's not a reason for building schools. But the classrooms are there, but sometimes they just go under the trees to aerate and work for some time under these places. And for those schools that they show under the tree, when we find out that it is not a bona fide government school, nor an authorized primary school, they are private school, they are shut down.
Thank you. We're going to look at another aspect of basic education.
Correct.
There are many people who are questioning the free character of basic education. The official policy says that basic education is free. But some parents are complaining that it's not free. Can you talk to us about that?
Basic education is free by the strategy document on education and of the basic sector in Cameroon. basic education is free, to the extent that we even give free textbooks. The readers, the math books, and the French textbooks are given free to the kids. Now, there is the contribution that is done by the Parent Teachers Association. That is the only kind of free that is also authorized by the text. This is understood better by the Anglo-Saxon part of Cameroon, because parents are happy to improve the standard of the school to make their children comfortable. So they create a PTA, which is a Parent Teachers Association. This is managed by the Parent Teachers Association. The school administration itself has little or nothing to do with it. When they have their association meeting, they determine what they think they can improve in the school. A school might have 800 children, but only 12 toilets. And the parents will say, I think we should add 4 more toilets for the children. And this will cost 1 million. If there are 800 children, maybe every parent will pay 1,000 francs, for instance, or 1,500. And the Parent Teachers Association would construct the toilets and hand over to the school for the use of the pupils.
Yes, that is, some of us pass through. Correct. And we know how useful that PTA is.
Yes.
In some schools that are just created, they even, before government steps in, the community, what we call Parent Teacher Association, they are the one managing it, and they manage it so well. Now, the question we are asking is, in government, well-established government schools, how do we avoid corruption, given that it's a fertile ground for corruption? The secondary education has made it possible for that to go through the bank, the E kind of money. Is that what is happening in basic education? Basic education, we don't pay fees, so we don't go there. Okay. PTA arrangement is their PTA arrangement, and they have a whole association to deal with that. And in the basic sector, we have hardly had any of those problems, because the head teacher supervises in a way what is, if there is going to be an alarm, he or she is first to see and call the president of the PTA, sit with your executive and sort this, because this is what I am hearing. Our staff have no business with the PTA contribution. If they come to a school and see that there is no water point, for instance, instead of waiting for the government, they can offer that to the school for the children. And they've built water points. Some of them have done boreholes in schools for children, which has nothing to do with the administration. So their money is for them. We don't need to ask them to go to the bank for that. And I will tell you that with basic education, we've hardly had problems with PTAs and syndicates. Thank you very much. That's very good to know. Comfort Musa, Tewi Lambif are accompanying me here. We are journalists, and we have Dr. Ashere Kilo Fofung, who is the Secretary of State to the Minister of Basic Education, facing the press, a special edition of Press Hour broadcasting live from Government Bilingual Primary School, Bastos in Yaoundé. The next issue we are going to handle is what you have as the policy of inclusive education, which you have so close to your heart as a Ministry of Basic Education. I'm going to ask Comfort Musa, who deals with children, and this is her area of specialty. What is your experience? You are dealing with these children. You give us, and then if you have a question to ask to the minister, you go ahead.
So my experience is inclusive education is now a buzzword. And so every school, even the one that is not inclusive, brands itself as an inclusive school because it's good for business. But what happens when you go to the schools, many schools think inclusion is a ramp. So they build a ramp and that is it. And I have been to schools where, okay, now, especially in the remote areas, the teachers say we're inclusive. Look on campus, we have children with hearing impairments, we have children with dyslexia, we have children with visual impairments. Now they bring them into one room. And I had a case where I was working on a report, and I went to a class where they had 6 children with hearing impairments. And you know, when children have hearing and speech impairments at home, they may learn their own sign language to communicate with your parents. But then in school now you have a teacher with 8 children or 6 children in a class, and each of them has a different sign that their mothers, you know, use to communicate with them. But
is
this
that not
teacher,
that aspect of inclusion? Because
but then this teacher doesn't know sign language. No, inclusion, Killian,
Yeah.
inclusion is not just saying bring children with different abilities and put in one class. That's what many schools, when they say inclusive education, they bring all the children and put, like this case in point. But then the children come and they cannot learn because the teacher doesn't know sign language and there is no unified sign language. So come from one child may be this, for another child it may be this. How does the teacher teach them? So my experience is that there is a buzzword, it's fashionable. People are bringing all these children with disabilities and different impairments into schools, but not equipping the teachers and not providing enough resources to accommodate the different needs of the children. And at the end of the day, it's even worse for them. So inclusion, I think, around Cameroon now is bring the children with disabilities. But then once they are in the school, is learning adapted to all of them. And even here in Yaoundé, we have had cases of, last year, I had a parent who called and said, Komi, you work in this sector. I have a child and the child is not able to go to school. Personally, we invested and we took the child round Yaoundé for more than 2 weeks, and that child could not have admission into even the public schools because of the school says we are inclusive. But then when the child come and they have many special needs, the teachers will say, we can't handle this one. So it's just inclusion beyond the policy to practice.
Yes, the policy.
I would like to see,
the
and maybe
person who is involved with policy is here. But before our special guest takes the microphone, I'm still going to ask. That's your area of specialty. You've discovered that that's what's happening. What have you done after that, knowing that this is
so? When I go to the field as a reporter, my work is to shine a light on this is happening and provide all stakeholders with enough information to make informed choices. I have worked in a community in Oku where we saw a child with cataracts and the child got blind because the cataracts were not operated on time. Something that would have cost the family maybe 200,000 francs. Now the child is blind because when it's too late and they operate, the eye is lazy and the child cannot see. Now they had to put the child in a rehabilitation center and it's even more expensive. Doing that report alone, there are people from Oku who said, my God, we didn't know this is happening. And if it costs just 200 francs, then maybe there is something we can do. So as journalists, for me, I think my work is to shine a light in that respect. But now as a social worker, sometimes we would do educative programs. We have trainings on inclusive practice and you know, so it depends on which cap I am wearing per time. And if it's just shining a light even on Press R today to say we need to interrogate when schools say they are inclusive, what do they mean? Do they have the resources to accommodate these children? Because sometimes you scar the children. They go to school, they cannot learn, they say we're never going back to school because there's no place for us.
Let's get it from the most authoritative voice.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate the fact that education is not the sole responsibility of the state. Education is a responsibility of parents, the state, and other stakeholders. I am so elated that, Comfort, you are in this field, and you found out all of these things, and I'm not sure you went to any of our cabinets to ask for audience to discuss this. You certainly sat, and as a journalist, you'll be talking about it. Just talking about it sometimes is therapeutic, but it doesn't move the action. But I would tell you, and happily so too, that in Cameroon, we had about 69 pilot inclusive schools, government schools. And when you say pilot, this concept is just coming into Cameroon. And of course, you pilot and see how it works, and then you continue to spread out. We noticed pedagogically that it was the wrongest thing to put children with special needs away in a special school. They don't develop well, they feel frustrated, they feel unloved, And from the homes that they come, they feel rejected and dejected. When parents themselves start rejecting their children, how do you expect teachers who really don't know them and who, like you say, have not been initially trained to manage them in a regular classroom? So what we are doing is that we have training every year, sponsored by the World Bank. The Inspector General for Education can tell you that. The Director of Primary Education can tell you that. We have training going on all the time because world global education today insists on that. They want us to pay more attention to these children than the other children because they know the psychological implication of a child who is like this, struggling with other children. You know how other children would even make a mockery of them. Forget about that the teacher is not even trained. Just the child having the courage to go to class and sit with other children. Sensitization from the parents is one thing, and us journalists should be talking about this all the time. And I've offered that. I'm one of those who, at any time, you want me to come and talk to parents about loving and accepting their children who are different and make them go to school. Listen to this case of the cataract child who eventually might have gotten blind. Do you blame the school? No. The parents had this child at home and they saw this child struggling. Did they raise an alarm? Did they go to anybody to say, what can we do about the situation of this child? So parents too should be aware of the situation. Inclusive education, like you rightly say, is a whole gamut of ideas and things. It is new in Cameroon and we are following the steps and we have to catch up really fast.
Yes, one other thing that makes Cameroonian feel very uncomfortable is the level of violence and drugs, if you like, drugs accompanied by violence in school. We're going to call on Tewi, who has obligatorily, because as a Cameroonian we know this is very regular in schools, to talk about this, and if there's a question, you ask the Secretary of State.
Yes, the issue of violence and drugs in our schools, I think, is so pertinent that it's the foundation of everything. Basic education is the foundation of the future. And when certain things, whether be it violence or drug abuse, starts at that level, it becomes very, very dangerous. And I think it's a matter of collective responsibility. The government, the schools are there, they provide the teachers, they provide the infrastructure, they do what they can do. But some of these things do not only happen within the school milieu. I think it starts from home.
Thank you.
And everybody has a role to play.
Thank you.
It becomes so preoccupying when some people behave as if, when you hear that a little child of about 10 years in primary school stabs another person, it is not only in school that has started. It's something that started long ago. And the first thing we need to do is for sensitization. Beginning with parents. Let the parents know that when they send their children to primary school or to nursery school, it doesn't mean that they have abandoned their parenthood to the teachers. Secondly, I think the teachers too must be empowered. I don't know whether their curriculum for being trained as teachers takes into consideration certain aspects, because it keeps changing. The way children behave in the 60s and 70s and 80s and today is not the way times have changed.
Do you know why?
Tell us.
Yes.
The advent of social media.
That's where I'm going to.
Gen Z.
You touched the nail on the head when you said this was shared responsibility. Parents have the honors to take care of their children emotionally, psychologically, and financially. Parents have to actually parent their children. Don't send these children off to school as if to discard of them. If you do not search your children's bags at home before they go to school, you can do it in a jokey manner so that you are not surprised at some of the things that you find. Yet at school, one of the things that we do in our primary schools is that occasionally we let the headmistresses and the teachers search the children's bags. And if they find anything funny, you are down for it. And once they search, and you hear that a child's bag was searched and they found this or that or something that is not supposed to be in that bag, then other children are already aware that they shouldn't do that. From time to time, our teachers talk to the children. We have told them that sometimes short break is not just to go out and play. You can engage in a casual conversation with your child. If you see what these children are watching on television, on Facebook, it is violence. Each scene, somebody is slapping the other. Each scene, a mother is abusing the father is slapping the mother, a child is slapping the brother. They
That's
take
how it
that,
starts.
that's how it starts. You
Yes.
pick that up and you take that up to school. And so we are ready to punish the child, but in punishing the child, we invite the parents to come to school. And sometimes we can suspend the child for so long to go back home and have some home training.
Yes.
So we search their bags, we talk to them, and we make sure that they don't come to school with telephones and things like that.
Yes, comfort.
Violent behavior is obviously learned, especially for children in primary school.
Correct.
Away from phones and TV, most of the schools have been described by humanitarian organizations as basic education is a sector in crisis, given that there are many schools in crisis zones, and these children see arms and they see blood and it becomes normal. I just want to find out if the public primary schools in the areas of Cameroon where you have conflict and armed crisis, if there is psychosocial support for these children, because they learn this habit and bring. Is there psychosocial support for children in Northwest, Southwest,
Well,
maybe
that's
East
an
region
official
and
policy.
far north? Yeah.
Yes.
We have not instituted an official policy per se, but in our delegations of education, we have medical doctors, and some of them have trained in child psychology. So sometimes they go in there and they do something of therapy for these children. And it is not something that you do in one day. I'm telling you, a child who watches a gunman shoot down their mother and father will take forever for this child to be normal again.
That's correct.
And unfortunately, we can talk about it and act as if we can do that the way it's supposed to be done. But we don't have in Cameroon what it takes to treat children of these kinds of psychological trauma. What we can do and what we are doing is just talking to them and making them understand that that is not how the world is all over. For some of the children who can move, they have been moved to places that are safe. But some of them who don't have anywhere to go are stuck in there. They listen to these gunshots every day. They listen to cries of people dying every day. And I tell you, it's traumatizing. But the good thing is that despite all of this, the results of our public exams from these places gives me a heartwarming experience.
Yeah.
Tells me that it is not as bad as we imagine.
Yes,
It could be worse, but it is not as bad because their results are telling and they improve every year.
we don't have much time to go to the end of this program, about 4 minutes. We still had a number of very important issues to address. Digitalization, which is one of the things that the Ministry of the Basic Education is carrying as a flagship policy issue. We have the motivation of teachers, and we also have the World Literacy Day that will be celebrated in Cameroon. Can you help us address these 3 issues in 4
Very
minutes?
quickly.
Yes.
Yes, we are celebrating World Literacy Day. You said yourself that for children who did not have the opportunity to continue after primary school or who dropped out of primary school have the opportunity to do, informal education in our literacy centers. And we have literacy centers all over the country. So there is no problem with that. The Director General of UNESCO is coming into the country to celebrate World Literacy Day on the 9th and 10th. The day itself is the 8th, but it falls on a weekend, so we moved it so it falls on Monday.
Of September.
So to tell you how important that is, and it is celebrated regionally and internationally.
I am told that Cameroon is the 2nd country in Africa to host this celebration.
International celebration in the capacity in which it's holding.
Okay,
Yes.
we look forward to that. There are 2 other issues, digitalization and motivation of teachers. Maybe Yes.
I want to drag into that. Yes, and I am inviting all of you to attend this conference because you'll see what it means by digitalization.
Yeah.
The world is moving. The transformation of education is a must, and Cameroon will not stay behind. We've moved from distance learning, we've moved from e-learning. We should be with AI now, artificial intelligence. And even at the level of basic, I will be talking because I just came back from a conference in China where even children at 4 are being introduced to AI. STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is where the world is going. I did literature, but today you can read literature on the internet. You need to have your hands on deck with techniques,
I should be proud
science,
to say here that our special guest taught me in the early 90s at the University of Yaoundé, one at a time.
I'm glad you're where you are.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's my honor to have you on
Yes,
this.
so I'm saying that yes, the Ministry of Basic Education is moving and moving very fast with it. We have a whole department that takes care of it. We have, challenges. We don't have that much internet. We don't have electricity supply, regular, but we are looking at solar systems, and we are looking at other ways by which we can get our children. We are bent on making sure that our primary school children not only stay with digital, but they move to AI, because that is where the world is. And to motivate the teachers who have been doing very well in the AI and in the directors who have been doing very well, the ministry applied for awards for them. And during our last consultation meeting, you notice that the President of the Republic himself offered medals to rewarding and worthwhile teachers and workers in the Ministry of Basic Education. And this is the kind of motivation that I think when our staff gets, they are willing to put in all to make sure that basic education stands tall and remains the foundation of the kind of education and the kind of children that we want to raise in Cameroon. The challenges are many, but I tell you, between me and Minister Tundingwa, we are ready.
Thank you very much. We're very, very, very grateful that you came. You've enlightened us here on the set, and Cameroonians, our viewers who were watching you. Dr. Ashere Kilo Ofofa is the Secretary of State to the Minister of Basic Education. We are also very grateful to Tewi Lambif, who is an editorialist in CRTV. Thank you for coming on to put this special touch to this special program, this special edition of Press Hour. Thank you very much. Comfort Musa, who is journalist and coordinator of Sister Speak 237. Thank you very much for coming. We want to also to thank the officials of the Ministry of Basic Education, ranging from the common person down there to the Secretary General. And thanks immensely to the Minister himself, Professor Laurent Serge Tundingwa, who made all of this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, if you missed out on anything on this program today, you will have a rebroadcast, full rebroadcast on Monday at 2:30, and you'll be happy to know what we discussed. Or on Wednesday after the news in French on CRTV News. That's at 9 p.m. Thanks very much. We have had this special edition of Press Hour broadcast live from Government Bilingual Primary School, Bastos in Yaoundé. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
Okay.
Thank you.